This video contains major spoilers and some graphic content that may be offensive to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Sorry.
I remember one morning scrolling through the news feed when I went into the other room to see what horror movie I could watch next. I thought, man, I need a good one to watch. Then I stumbled upon an article discussing how deeply underappreciated this one movie was. I was like,
what is it?
Then I saw it was a zombie movie, but it didn't really look like a zombie movie. Anyway, I was curious, so I checked it out that afternoon. This movie is I kinda knew what I was getting into after reading a bit about it, non-spoiler version. I read how extreme it was, maybe even offensive to most people who can't handle the gore and other stuff too. I hesitated at first because I was still trying to recover from watching movies like a Serbian film. But I really loved this movie. But before I get into it though, I want to talk a bit about the zombie genre as a whole. We all know the great George A. Romero, may he rest in peace, and the immense impact he made on the genre starting with Night of the Living Dead. There's been a huge wave of zombie content in movies, like 28 Days Later, which changed the concept from slow-walking zombies to ones that can run as fast as Usain Bolt. The Resident Evil franchise took heavy inspiration from Romero. It also made a huge impact as a staple of the survival horror genre for video games. Then you have shows like The Walking Dead, the South Korean film Train to Busan, and the Last of Us video game series by Naughty Dog, not to mention its TV adaptation on HBO, which is quite good. I'm still wondering when we'll get part 3.
Fuck.
Zombies have become a universal concept in horror for so long, not just because of their popularity or the economic boom they bring to the industry, but because of their unique ability to reflect global and social issues we face every day. Things like societal disintegration, capitalism, loneliness, and the evil lurking within all of us.
You can cry. Hell, you're all gonna be doing that.
The COVID pandemic brought a surge in zombie-related stories, making them hit a little closer to reality. Not that I'd recommend playing The Last of Us Part 2 during that time, like me. There's certainly no path to a happy ending there, and we were already dealing with enough isolation. It was rough, I would say, but I still enjoyed playing the game. I don't even consider myself a fan of zombies. I don't know why. Maybe deep down I just don't want to be like everyone else, being a pretentious noob, like I don't know. But zombies are popular, what can I say? Everyone loves zombies, but it does get tiring, especially with how much zombie content is pumped out these days, like the next Marvel movie packed with really bad jokes.
Told the same stupid joke every year.
And don't even get me started on The Walking Dead. Sure, I watched a bit of it, but honestly, it's not a good show overall. It's with its bad pacing, its questionable character decisions, and way too many pointless, exposition-heavy dialogue scenes. Read the comic books, at least they get to the point. During the pandemic, I assumed it wasn't really on a lot of people's radar. It certainly wasn't on mine. I didn't watch this movie until 2024, even though it came out back in 2021. First-time director Rob Jabas, a Canadian living in Taiwan working as a staff writer, was approached by his boss, who later became the film's producer, to create a zombie movie. The idea was to make something profitable without facing too much competition, since most studio productions have been shut down due to the pandemic. Originally, Jabas didn't even want to make a zombie movie. In his words,
I don't think that genre is terribly interesting.
So instead, he came up with the idea to make the film scary and extreme by turning the so-called zombies into homicidal, evil, sadistic people who go to the absolute limit of human cruelty and take pleasure in seeing others suffer. Which brings up my next topic, Crossed. Crossed was a comic book series created by Garth Ennis and Jochen Burrows, Anyway, it had an initial 10-issue run from 2008 to 2010 before branching off into other storylines told in a non-linear fashion, with different characters and different scenarios. I've only read the original series, and honestly, those issues contain some of the most depraved, horrifying, and sickening things I've ever seen in any horror media. A lot of people have pointed out the similarities between this film and Crossed, almost to the point of calling it a complete rip-off. There are undeniably strong parallels between the comics and the film. One example comes from the very beginning of issue 0. A man walks into a diner holding a torn-off arm, casually throwing it before taking a bite out of someone's nose. In the film, something very similar happens, though it's a woman this time. She walks in, does something unsettling, and then things escalate quickly. After the diner scene in the comic, there's a sudden car crash. In the film, the same thing, a car crash. Personally, I don't see this as a ripoff. They both work in their own medium so well. Just think of it like a shared influence or homage. Just look at Berserk and Dark Souls. Jabaz decided to borrow those elements and incorporate them into his film, believing that the film would stand out from many typical zombie films. With a finished script a few months later, the team began shooting in Keelung and Taipei. Principal photography took about 28 days to shoot.
28 days later, there you go.
Yep.
After filming wrapped, post-production took several more months. Jabaz was not happy with the original cut of the film, so he took over and re-edited the film to adjust the pacing and scares. Considering it was his first feature, the entire production process from script to final cut was very fast, completing it in just 8 months. The film became quite the success, winning multiple horror film festival awards, including Best First Feature at Fantasia, more awards at Fantastic Fest, and for its special effects at Horrorland at Fright Nights Festival. Very impressive for a first-time director, if I do say so myself. I don't know much about Taiwanese films personally because I haven't watched many, but this is definitely more of a Western film by style and for the audience. It carries many of the styles and framing that I recognize from many American horror films. There are many reasons, but this of course was due to natural influences with Cross, like I've mentioned, but also due to the familiarity of the West in general. Jabaz is Canadian by origin. There really isn't a strong market for horror with the Taiwanese people compared to America when it comes to zombies and graphic horror in general. So marketing it for the West makes a lot more sense in hopes of getting enough of the profit back.
Go over very well in Taiwan.
Why not? Why do you think?
Because I think it's just a conservative audience. I also think there was a problem with marketing. I think that the marketing team didn't understand the film, and they kind of tried to market it more like just the standard Taiwan horror fare.
This film is also, as he said, inspired by many American horror films, but I will get into those a bit later. Now, let's look at the story itself. The plot is quite simple. A young couple living together, going through their normal day-to-day routine. After a minor argument, he takes her to work, but along the way they witnessed a horrifying and mysterious crime. All the while there's a slow creeping dread, a sense that the city is on the brink of collapse. People begin to change, infected by a mysterious virus called the Alvin virus, similar to influenza. It strips away their empathy, unleashing their most violent urges. Like Crossed. Separated from each other, the couple must survive to reunite, while witnessing just how monstrous humanity can become. Yes, very simple story, not a lot of character development, but it's incredibly effective, I think. The film takes its time early on, letting the horror slowly creep in before things become absolutely crazy. The level of patience makes the eventual explosion hit even harder. The build-up truly pays off. What's especially striking is how the film asks the bigger question without being too annoying, shoving it in your face basically. What does it mean to be human, or evil rather? Which I find to be interesting for a kind of film like this.
病毒不会降低他们想象力，反而会让他们想出最可怕的行为。
我觉得你真的很漂亮，但年轻人是怎样？
For me, the virus works as a metaphor for relieving suppression in a structured society. We follow the rules, we do nothing wrong, but there are moments, even brief ones, where it feels like something inside of us just wants to snap. If that affection never existed, would these people still have done the same things they did? Probably not, but maybe they wanted to. Almost like the virus gives permission. It's not an infection. But this poses another question. Before they kill, they cry. Was that regret? Did they feel bad for what they were about to do? Or was that again just part of the infection? I love movies like that. They just keep you guessing. Even the central characters could be capable of terrible things. Something as small as an argument, a tiny conflict, before going on a horrifying journey that escalates into killing others in order to survive, leading up to that shocking ending, spoiler alert, when Jim turns.
Who'da thought Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father?
While Crossed, of course, as I've mentioned many times before, was an obvious and major influence on the film, Jabaz also mentioned in interviews that he was heavily inspired by the Evil Dead movies.
The 2013 remake of Evil Dead, because I liked how Fede Alvarez balanced the the reality of violence with sort of the humor of it.
Evil Dead is packed with over-the-top gore, but it's so ridiculous that it manages to balance violence with a twisted sense of playfulness and humor. I couldn't help but wonder if Jabaz had been influenced by the French extreme horror wave. In his interviews, I didn't find much of him discussing the inspiration of the movement. He did mention, however, Gaspar Noé's controversial film Irreversible, and mentioned how much he admired it. I noticed parallels, especially the hallway scene. In the sadness, the girls yell, they're calling out for help. The man comes out, but he just walks away. This scene reminded me of that level of tension that happened in Irreversible, but in a different context. Irreversible isn't particularly grouped with extreme new wave films like Inside, Martyrs, or High Tension, since it's often framed as an art house film rather than a horror film. Yet it shares defining traits, unflinching, realistic scenes of violence that feel so immediate yet disturbing because of the intense subject matter they are willing to go to. Irreversible is very hard to watch. I find it almost unwatchable. These kinds of movies are so extreme that they will make you think twice before saying it is the scariest movie I've ever seen. Really? I do really like this movie. I find it to be very unique to the zombie genre. It knows the genre very well while subverting cliches that we expect. It has an exciting quality to it, so it has a little more on the fun side with that little Evil Dead taste, as I mentioned. So it's not purely an extreme horror French film.
Or is it?
I don't know. Still, I think it's fine. The sadness has enough substance to keep the film fun and engaging. But take my word for it, and might not be for you. I have a very good friend who said it probably could have been a better film if it wasn't too extreme, but I thought it was overall fine. But again, that's me. I still think it's not as bad as an extreme horror movie. Even after many months, I won't forget when I first saw this film, and how often I look back at the ending, when Kat goes through the door, with the blood on her shirt. We can assume she was killed when the helicopter arrived. I still wonder about Jim's expression, what he was thinking, what he was feeling. Was that a happy face or a sad one? Well, that's up to you.